Yeah, what you guys got? Start that way. Let's change it up.
Your defense obviously has played very well, but broadly speaking, the results, are they approaching, almost exceeding expectations? That's a pretty good effort.
It was a really good effort. There's no question about it. And it's interesting because each week you go out there and it's just such a new challenge every week, with either a certain type of player, certain style of scheme. There's some really good offenses out there, and so you never really know. I mean, it's almost like just the mentality, we got to go prove it every week before we say, hey, we're this or we're that in terms of – and I think that's probably the best thing that our defense has done. They kind of go out there with a kind of prove it mentality and did it again this week. And so that was nice. I think they feel good about it. I mean, I don't think – we never try to predict things, but I don't think we were, predicting that. I mean, the first drive, they kind of went down there, got their points, and then tough sledding from there. So it was hats off to those guys.
First, you guys had 8 yards in the first 2 drives.
Yeah.
And then just kind of took off. Was there any discussion on the sideline or anything that changed there for you guys, or just sticking on the script?
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. It was nice to get a touchdown in the first quarter, because that's kind of been the MO. And, some of, we talk about it, we do different things in practice, and sometimes it's almost like kind of works against you a little bit. But I know this, if we can stay on the field a little bit and convert some third downs and get a little bit of rhythm, to me that's the whole key to our offense starting to settle in a little bit.
Did Jake take a pretty serious step, in your opinion, Saturday, as far as accuracy?
I thought, I think he's a guy that, each game you kind of feel something that he's doing maybe a little bit better. He sees the field really well. And so when he misses something, it's almost like, what's going on out there? I mean, I say that as a sign of, respect to that kid. We don't think of him like a freshman because I think he does see things pretty well. And I think the guy throws the ball really, really well. And I've said all along, as long as he can set his feet and have a chance to see some things, he's going to find people that are open, and he's going to throw it pretty accurate. And so I keep going back to our O-line, who I think did a pretty nice job for the most part. I think we took a step there. Couple times Arizona got us on some scheme things. But when he's able to set his feet, he can throw it pretty well.
He said he didn't have a whole lot of fun sitting out against Stanford and having to watch. Did you get a sense from him last week that, he was going to do pretty much every single thing he could to get back and get healthy and play?
Well, I wasn't sure he wasn't going to play against Stanford. That's how this guy's as tough as they come. Don't let the schoolboy looks fool you. This guy is as competitive and as tough as they come. And I don't know how many guys would even have played at that level with what he has had going on, those type of things. Because you got to be able to practice to play. And so, I don't think practice was all that fun for him in terms of just pain tolerance and those things. Yeah.
Did he lobby at all to try to play against Stanford? Or?
Well, I think he kind of got it in terms of how many reps he was getting during the week. But, yeah, he was in there every single day. It wasn't like one thing had changed for him in terms of his preparation or what he was doing on the field. He was just trying to work through it. And, that has never changed since the second he's been here. He's very, very competitive.
Where has the offensive line improved?
It's interesting because the offensive line, it's you just see flashes at times from some of these young guys. You go, wow, that's really good. And the other times it's it's just maybe a day late and a dollar short. They know what they're doing, but it just doesn't react quite quick enough. And some of the guys we play against, they're going to crease you, and it's too late. So I think what they're, it's not any one thing. It really isn't. I think our fundamentals are getting slowly better. And certainly the knowledge of the system is a big thing as well. And so, work in progress. But I think there was a step forward. We're going to be challenged much differently this week with this crew that's coming in here, and so we'll see.
What did they do well?
play really, really hard. They got physical guys up front. They play hard. I mean, that's really what it is. And I mean, it sounds simple, and it's not simple. You know, they got a good scheme, but these guys play really, really hard. They're tough guys that play hard.
Coach Whittingham said your defense reminds him a little bit of his, the style, the way they do things. Do you agree with that, or similar?
You know, it might be similar in terms of, you know, some of the scheme stuff is similar, but, you know, I think both sides are playing really hard. I think there's some tough guys on both sides of the ball. I think those guys have stayed, you know, relatively healthy over there. You know, I mean, that's one thing you're seeing as the season goes on is certain teams, you know, get hit really hard by the injury bug, and you kind of see the same guys out there for the most part for Utah.
Elijah Walls is getting better and worse.
You know, Elijah will be week to week. I mean, he will. I don't know exactly where he was. You know, we had all the doctors look at him, all those kind of things, and still haven't got the final verdict, but he's not, you know, still on that week to week rotation.
Yeah, you ran a number of wide plays offensively. On several of them, in my eye, I saw some what looked like pretty impressive one-on-one open field blocking. You see that in the film?
I think we had a couple impressive blocks out there. You know, even throwing a bubble screen out there. You know, Dante was able to knock the guy off his feet, and then Jadon was able to take it. And I mean, that changed. I thought one of the things on offense that changed that had been really bothering me for a while is we just hadn't had anybody do much with the ball once they catch it and go down. And so finally we got some yards after the catch. The most impressive one to me might have been Isaiah Renfro in the red zone, broke 2 tackles to get the ball down the floor. It doesn't look like anything much, but I just haven't seen that. You know, Josh Perkins breaks a tackle and gets in the end zone. We throw him a little 4-yard route. I mean, that changes everything. Finally hit Dante in stride over the middle, and he kind of makes the guy miss and gets in. I mean, that changes everything. We're catching and going down. I mean, that's just tough sledding. Everything has to be just perfect. And you can't.
Those things showing up with either great coaching or the kids are.
Well, you know, something we talk about. I mean, these kids, you know, we talk about a lot of things that are still work in progress, but for whatever reason, you know, maybe Jake was throwing the ball with a little. I think accuracy has a lot to do with it. And timing, and so when you put those guys, the ball on the shoulder that it needs to be, and they can catch it in stride, or in Josh Perkins' situation, I mean, he stops at 4, turns around, that ball's right there, pivots out with no wasted time, and it's like, what just happened? Touchdown. And so a little bit more precision on everybody's, you know, part helps that tremendously.
Expanding on that, are there any other areas where after 8 games you're starting to see the development really take hold and you're seeing the kind of improvements that you would have expected?
You know, I think when you're playing, you know, kind of how we've been playing, it's not any one thing. There's a lot of areas that we need to get better at, you know, starting with our O-line play. You know, at times, I think that's the thing that's really has been frustrating for everybody, because at times you see flashes and you see some really good football. And at times it's just inconsistent. We can't, you know, we're 3rd and long, or we can't convert a 3rd down that we should. And you look at it on tape and it's like, well, it's pretty obvious why not. You know, it's just not executing like we can. And we're always looking, are we putting our guys in a position that's really hard to get that done, and we ask them to do something they can't do scheme-wise or something like that. And so sometimes it is. I mean, we're not going to be perfect, you know, as coaches as well, but I think a lot of it is some of these guys just seeing this stuff, and they're starting to settle in a little bit more. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's, you know, not any one thing.
Chris, you talked after the game about the guys responding to the urgency
Yeah.
of last week. What was that message? What was the basis of that?
Well, you know, we're pretty deep into our season here, and you know, whether you're going to sit there at, what would it be, 3-5 or 4-4? I mean, I think this team really understood there's a huge difference between those two at this time, especially with who we have coming here. And you know, I didn't have to say a whole lot. I mean, I think they said a whole lot. They got it, and they responded, which was nice.
What does a response like that tell you?
Well, kind of what we felt all along, that these kids are, I keep telling you that they practice hard, they prepare pretty hard, they're doing everything that they can do to continually to try to improve. And that can get hard because we've been at this for a long time, since spring ball and how hard they've worked over the summer. And everybody's, worked hard. I mean, every program, everybody's got good players and coaches and those things. But I think they just pay attention to how hard they've worked and the sacrifice that's come with it. And not all the results have shown up right now. And, that's the trick. I mean, things that are worthwhile in life usually are going to be very, very difficult. And most people can't and won't persist through those things. They just get frustrated. They back off with the energy, attitude, effort type things. And that's human nature. And I've been saying, we're going to get good if we can persist, if we can continue to stick to this process, which is really, really difficult to do when all the results aren't coming right away.
You were asked a little bit earlier about just the expectations for the defense. If I would have told you over the summer that you lose 6 years starting in front seven, and after week 8, you'd be number 1 in the conference in scoring defense, what do you about that?
Yeah, again, we're really pleased with those guys. So I don't know. I think one thing that was a little bit interesting was just last year how that whole thing went. We had some really good players, and for whatever reason, at times it really clicked, and at times it didn't click. And so, I know we got really good coaches over there on that side of the field, and I also know that we have some pretty good talent. I mean, let's not underestimate that with some of those guys that have been playing at a really high level. I think, those 2 linebackers inside have really stepped their game up that no one really knew a whole lot about, but they got enough experience last year to kind of set the stage. Our secondary was completely young last year, and so we played all those guys, and that's really paid off. And then, Feeney and Corey Littleton, are pretty good football players. And then inside, losing Danny, but then Elijah, Greg Gaines, Vita, you never know about that. But you kind of see some things. It's like, hey, there are some pieces there because it's always going to start with talent. I mean, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. If you don't have the pieces in this league, you're going to be exposed in a heartbeat. So, we probably had a little more talent than people thought, behind some of those good players. But, yeah, I think going back, you go, really? You can tell me that. That's pretty good.
You talked before about how it could be maybe more difficult for a senior to have that improvement from the junior to senior year. Why has Travis been able to make that? I mean, obviously he played a lot last year too.
Yeah.
What have you seen from him that's allowed him to kind of make that leap?
I think he's a little more detailed than he's been in the past. I mean, he's so athletic that even when he does make a mistake, he can make up for it a lot of times. And excuse me. So I think the one thing is he's not having to do that quite as much, playing with better eyes. He can make plays, chasing things down, but maybe he shouldn't be, and they come back with a naked or gets out of his gap. And so he's been able to make that up throughout his career. So I think he's playing a little more solid because I think he's doing his job, playing with better eyes, and it's really starting to translate for him.
Given with how well he played last year, was there still ever a consideration of putting Travis in that situation? Did you ever have any kind of original thoughts about maybe that was the position he was going to end up at?
Playing Howley's position?
I mean, was there any thought that you might start to get him in there early, knowing that maybe long term he was going to be at that position?
Well, I think we were still trying to figure out what his best position was last year, kind of where he played. And then, I think as we went through the season and then kind of analyzed things, can he hold up, kind of as almost a defensive lineman. We felt he could rush the passer and chase things down, and so we were trying to figure that out. And, we kind of think his natural position is kind of that hybrid outside linebacker, and so I think he's right at home where he needs to be. And we kind of told him that all along. We really think that's what you are. But I think guys, play maybe a little different position. It takes a while to make that change in your mind.
Games in now, how similar does what he's doing at Buck look to what you were calling it for Howley last year?
Yeah.
Maybe some of the tweaks there.
That's a good question. I think the one thing that Howley did so well, I mean, that guy's just such a natural pass rusher. Now, I say natural. I don't know if there's many guys that I've been around that worked harder on, the intricacies of pass rush. I mean, he made it look so natural and so easy. But that guy usually was probably always the last guy off the field, and then he'd be in the weight room going through these hand placement moves and all that. And so he was such a good pass rusher. I mean, as good as we've seen for, a long time. And but I think Travis is, so athletic that he can continue to develop those type of skills and be right there with him where, and then just his God-given speed to be able to run things down is different.
Chris, everybody's talking about the Miami-Duke final play. Two-part question. Do you guys practice the rugby lateral? And should there be some mechanism to overturn an egregious decision like that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody likes, the wrong calls. I think that's why we have so much instant replay anyways. I mean, to me, it drives me crazy because it's like, really? We're going to look at this too? I mean, let the guys go and do part of their job. Now, maybe game ending and some of those type of things, scoring plays and all that, maybe you need to look at all those. I don't know, but, I think everybody wants to get it right. First part of your question, yes, we do practice it. In fact, we started practicing a couple weeks ago, and then it was kind of interesting yesterday, because we've practiced it for a long time over the years and never really used it. But we had started practicing just in case. And so it was interesting yesterday that we actually showed them the clip to say, this is the situation. Now, we've been coaching a long time and we've never used it, but here you go.
Utah starts the season 6-0. They moved to number 3. And 2 of their last 3 games, they open as underdogs. Do you feel like maybe the public perception is wrong on Utah, or what is it about them that made?
Yeah, I don't know anything about underdogs or anything like that. I don't think those guys are underdogs in any games they play. I mean, those guys, this is a good football team that's solid. I mean, they don't have a weakness. They're awesome on special teams. Play great defense. Big time running back. Offensive line that can move the ball. QB's been senior quarter. I mean, so I don't know what everybody's talking about there. I mean, this is a lot of respect for these guys. I mean, this is another type of program that you're going, okay, this is kind of what we like our guys to look like here down the road. Play really, really hard. They know what they're doing, and they're not going to give you anything.
What was USC able to do against them that maybe other teams hadn't?
Turnovers. This whole thing. 4 turnovers. It's like we got a bunch of turnovers last week, changes the game completely. And so they're usually pretty good with that. Had one of those games, they turned it over a lot more than they're used to. That changes the game.
Chris, you said that Jake's not that freshman. Is he at a point of the season where you can increase his workload or responsibilities or make things more difficult because of his experience now?
Well, it's interesting because I kind of said this before, even when we were going into, maybe not the first game to get his feet wet and all those things. He's not the limiting factor in terms of what we do at all. It really isn't. All those guys have to work as a crew, all 11 of them. And he's not going to slow the crew down on, I don't think he can get this read, or I don't think he can, the whole thing is it's just kind of getting to those grooved calls and reps, as we say, that, these guys have had this a lot because, we might have a play in, but it changes depending on the defense that they throw at you, your assignment, the technique, all those things. And so when we game plan and all that, we really don't think about Jake. I mean, everything kind of starts with your quarterback, but that's not where we start. It's like, can the crew handle this? Is if we're going to do something new. And so it's that fine balance of game planning to say, hey, this is the scheme dictates this type of stuff. We had enough, work on this to be any good at it. And so he's not our limiting factor. Yeah.
You mentioned after the game, tempo stuff with him. Is that a week-to-week thing, depending on the matchup, or is that something you feel like maybe down the road, or maybe in the near future, that it's maybe worth ramping up for him because he doesn't feel so comfortable with that? I think he has a pretty good history with that.
Yeah. Yeah, good questions. something that we debate and discuss. It's not like we don't have it in our offense. I mean, we have the go fast stuff, and it's, again, has to do with getting into a rhythm, not going quickly, 3 and out and those things. I will say this, I think that's one of the things that's helped our defense, may have slowed our offense down and stuff. But when you're not out there seeing all these snaps, we know for a fact that helps defensive football as well. But so again, you come back to the balance. I mean, we got to score. At this point, it's like, hey, our defense can, they can play defense, and so what do we need to do to get more points? And so those are the things that we look at now.
You said after the game that a dominant performance, it was about time for that. What is that worth for a young team to blow out a conference opponent?
Yeah. Well, I think this game's so much about confidence. I really do. And so I know it makes it feel a heck of a lot better going out to practice for everybody. But the one thing that we need to do around here is, and I've been, I think this theme just comes up in every single talk I have, is just be more consistent. Now, like I said before, I mean, this is one of the top teams in the country coming in here to play. And so that's a problem within itself. I mean, we could be making some strides, and sometimes it doesn't show up exactly because those are some really good players that are coached really well on the other side of the field. But for us to kind of make some progress with our confidence and those type of things, we need to be more consistent, not just a game here and then, go back to not moving the ball or, those type of things, scoring points.
How much does it help as you're trying to build depth and you get a comfortable win, cycling some of those second, third team guys in there, not only for their own experience, but their own kind of motivation, confidence? Does that help out during the week in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that we've tried to do a decent amount on offense. We'll rotate a lot of guys, and I mean, there's a lot of guys that get reps, and I think one of the keys to that is it's not a lot of fun to go to practice, football practice. If all you got to do is get your, teeth kicked in and don't get a chance to do anything on Saturday, after a while that can get old, and so I think that's important. I think we pay attention to that. But then sometimes, there's a line where it's like, hey, these guys aren't quite ready. And then especially all the games we play in that are so tight and so competitive, it's hard to do that. And so when you can get some guys in there that maybe haven't seen the field a whole lot, I think it's awesome. I think they totally deserve it. And it's, we feel great to be able to go in there and put them on in Husky Stadium, running around in a game uniform, making plays and even making mistakes. I mean, that's awesome for everybody.
At what point of the season, Chris, were you really cognizant of tapering back the hitting maybe in practice or the length in practice just because to keep these guys going?
Yeah. After the first game, we pay attention to that. I mean, I really do. I mean, and so certainly you get into the last month and you got to pay closer attention to it. And so it's like, sometimes you almost got to fight. It's almost like counterintuitive. It's like we need to stay out here about 3.5 hours, not an hour and 50 minutes. But the give and take, of keeping them fresh, keeping them hungry, not just going through the work and getting sweaty and not really improving. And so certainly that's something that we're paying attention to right now, that we try to, even cutting practice down 10 minutes can feel like a tremendous amount. On both sides, the coach is going, I didn't get this drill today. We're still not good enough here, and I didn't get this drill. But the players feel it also too. Hey, we're off the field, a lot earlier. No, it's only 5-10 minutes. So we do pay attention to it, and we do try to cut it back where we can.
All right. Thanks a lot,
All righty, guys. Thank you.